Okay, so I'm aware my microphone sounds shit, and I haven't done one of these in a while, but I just wanted to talk about something which has been on my mind, and that is the natural consequence of playing competitive video games, known as tilting, and why in some cultures it doesn't seem as prevalent as it is in perhaps our own or the North American, European scene, whatever, and what that's all about. So I am very guilty of tilting. People that I play with, predominantly William, can definitely confirm that I get toxic. I tilt in game. I'd like to think that I have a good, strong mentality and a good philosophy behind the game, and I go into it with an idea of what I want to get out of it. But in reality, that's not the case. Often, when I'm spending time playing video games, I'm actually escaping from the real world, and I'm lowering my inhibitions, not heightening them, in order to enjoy a relaxed and sort of, comparatively speaking, stress-free experience, as opposed to real life, which can be, job and money, house stresses, stuff like that, where you're investing a lot more of your conscious effort and time into making more intelligent decisions, perhaps. So in game, we perhaps as human beings, and a lot of this is going to be like sort of unresearched, unsourced, like just sort of me pontificating. So the only reason I really feel like it's perhaps worth your time is I used to enjoy making these commentaries, and people used to tell me that they enjoyed listening to them. So that's why I'm here. So what's the problem then? What is this sort of toxic innate desire to basically self-sabotage and to ruin the game experience for ourselves and other people? Well, in my opinion, it comes down to good old-fashioned culture, and I believe that in the United Kingdom, perhaps in places in Europe as well, and especially in North America, we all believe in meritocracy, right? We believe that if we put in an amount of work, if we make an investment, we'll get a almost immediate return on it. I.e., right now I'm playing Deathmatch Live. This isn't just a recording. If it was a recording, I'd probably try and choose some better frags. But we believe that if we put an hour, 2 hours into practicing hitting headshots, that we're going to get an immediate return and our aim is going to be better in game. And then that's true for an hour. We jump into a matchmaking and we feel a little bit tighter than perhaps we normally do. And then we stop playing, or we come on the next day and we've reset back to where we were. And it's frustrating. Or here's another example. Let's say we practice our movement, like that's something which is probably a little bit more down to muscle memory as well, and game feel. Maybe that's a bad example. Let's go for grenades or executes, right? And you can't remember smoke lineups, even though you spent a whole half an hour in a private cache server yesterday, throwing the same smoke for quad or whatever from white box or from boost, and you cannot understand why your short-term memory didn't turn that good old piece of knowledge into more long-term sort of indented, right? But then, for example, the Mirage set up 3 default smokes on A site, you could literally never forget. So why is it that you're finding it hard to learn new stuff? So the point that I'm making here is what we're trapping ourselves in as human beings here is a kind of mental loop where what happens is we believe that if we put in the work in order to get something out immediately, i.e. investment for return, what we are doing with our investment is we're not stewing it, we're not allowing it to sort of grow in size or collate. I think that's probably the end of that analogy. Instead, what's happening is we are making the investment of our time and expecting an immediate return, and that is problematic. And it's pernicious, it's damaging to our health and to our mindset overall, I found. So here's another example. I've played 2,000 hours on this game, and give or take, and I'm definitely not where I want to be in terms of skill, and there's reasons for that. I tend to like play for too long, um, but also too spread out, so I take massive breaks rather than playing little bits consistently. I don't have any kind of practice routine. I don't really kind of make effort with map knowledge. I just sort of jump into deathmatch occasionally, or I'm playing with my friend, and half the time I'm playing with my friend, we're sort of trolling, to be honest. We're not really playing the game seriously, which is why we're fucking D-ranking. Um, because we're sort of just having fun, because who cares, right? And like maybe that is a way you can go about playing the game, but ultimately it doesn't satisfy me, because I feel like actually what I'm doing is I'm wasting 6-8 hours of a gaming session, not really giving a shit. But this is something I'm finding really difficult to turn on or off, and I'm trying to theorize here why that might be. And it's because of insecurity and anxiety. I think, because what happens is you go into a server with certain expectations of how you're going to perform relative to the opponents of the other team. Maybe you look at their hours played, maybe you're just conscious of the elo that you're playing at, whether it's matchmaking or pug of any kind. And all of these things get to you. They give you certain expectations, and when you can't make certain kills, or you can't aim necessarily the way that you'd want to, your crosshair placement feels rusty, or you can't remember certain smokes. What happens as a result of that is you cover this insecurity with not taking the game seriously, and then you begin to lose rounds, and this frustrates you, and then you begin to try in order to compensate, and then you can't just switch it on and off like that. It doesn't really work. So then you begin to obviously get frustrated, and then this is where the pattern of tilting begins. And this is predominantly in my experience, but I don't think it's unsafe to sort of compare this to how other people might experience the game too. How do we repair this? Well, arguably, you'd need to reverse engineer a cultural, capitalistic, fucking meritocratic attitude that is very, very difficult to unweave. And this is why I admire certain people like in League of Legends, LS, Nick Dosazar, because, and I will dominate as well, made videos and cut the Western shit and all that stuff. As much as there are issues with, perhaps you could argue those brains, if you will, in their attitude towards the game, I actually think LS tilts. I think he has sometimes quite a toxic and an unhealthy attitude towards the game, but that's besides the point I'm making. What he does understand is that I don't really know the backstory, but at least the way he compares it to his experience in South Korea is that in sort of South Asia, it's a lot more common to have a very different approach, and they definitely understand in returns over time. In other words, when they're making those investments, they're not expecting something back straight away. They are making those investments and they're growing them every single day. They are nurturing them. They're not just sort of stagnated and then withering. They are nurturing them. They're reinforcing them. They're building them up into strong fundamentals, which then translate into their overall ethos and approaching the game. Because for them, it is more like applying yourself to a job or a task. And for a lot of people, this isn't fun. For a lot of people, this isn't entertaining. Like, it's not. You play video games to have fun, to relax, to unwind. So why would you make it a chore? Well, I suppose the counter argument to that would be, if you believe you are capable of playing at a certain level, and you believe that that you're good enough to enjoy the game amongst peers who are superior to where you are, if improving is something that you enjoy, you'll put in that time, and I believe that 1,500 hours of respecting the game and playing properly, and going about it the way you should, perhaps trying to play more in a sort of team environment, playing real Counter-Strike rather than just pugs, I think it's more than enough to become a semi-competent player in terms of like a sort of face it level 10, whatever approaching could play in scrims and not get absolutely dominated, essentially, right? But does anyone want to do that? And this is something that I've seen sort of a point that I've seen raised quite a lot, actually, is that a lot of people think they want to be pro, or they think that they want to be competitive, but they don't. They don't want to do these things. They just like the idea of being it. And this is a perversion of what it means to be like. This is a perversion of the archetype of a professional, semi-professional player, because actually what you're doing is you're reducing it down to your own sick idea of the level of work that you think it takes to become good at this game, just because you can watch a YouTube video with some cash smokes and spend 5 minutes in a server practicing them. And here's another issue, just actually as an afterthought, because this wasn't in my mind going into the video. This is no notes, by the way. You can kind of tell by the rambling, but who's missed that, eh? Grinding. Should it be a grind? Korean League of Legends player might, stay in solo queue for 10 hours a day in order to get every possible edge and advantage they can, but that is absolutely not the same as playing the game for 10 hours when you don't have that same mentality. And I think the reason behind that is because if you're grinding thinking, oh, if I play 10 hours of deathmatch, then my aim will be sick as fuck. No, it won't, because that actually what you're doing then is you are, in inevitably going to lose focus. You're going to get tired, and you're going to adopt lazier habits because you're not interested in doing the best you can. You're just interested in playing more and more and more and more, and all you're doing is then escaping from your real responsibility, which should be improving by consistency over time and not just pure grinding. I think grinding is a nasty concept, and I don't really get behind it. I think actually it's quite sad. If you feel like a game is a grind, you're overplaying, and it shouldn't be. It should be equal parts, playing the game and having fun in matches, and equal parts practice and theory and everything else behind it. But you know, just don't go at it too hard, and you'll probably end up enjoying the game a lot more. Anyway, that's my thoughts for today. If you guys enjoyed, then feel free to shoot me some comments if you have any interesting counterpoints or want to continue the discussion. It's been sort of fun to do this, so also expect some highlights soon because that's going to be a thing. I've got shitloads saved, and some of them are actually not terrible. So, oh yeah, also DMG. I've deranked from LEM to DMG in 1 week. It's fucking yeah, desperate times. Wait, where's William? Look, William is legendary. This is a global elite player right here. This is what we've done to each other. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Take it easy. Bye bye.